Hey everybody, Tom Carnell here, Carnell Knowledge. It's a show I do here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, wherein I review a bunch of movies and books and records and that kind of thing. If you don't know who I am, I was a buyer for Tower Records, Record Factory and Warehouse for about 20 years. I published Carpet Noctem back in the 90s, and then I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 15 years or so. Now I'm an author. You can go to my Amazon page and find all sorts of books. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the video because that really helps. And then if you go in the description down there, you will find links to trailer films or sometimes full movies of all the movies I'm going to talk about, Amazon links to the book so you can find the book I'm talking about, and then a YouTube playlist for the entire album of the records I'm going to mention. Okay, so that piece of work done. Let's get on with the content. Our first movie today is called SIEN YUAN, aka A Chinese Ghost Story. It's directed by Sin Tung Ching, who did the movie Hero, produced by the great Choi Hark, and stars Leslie Chung from Farrell, My Concubine, Joey Wang from The Green Snake, Wu Ma from Kickboxer, Siu Meng from The Medallion, and A Better Tomorrow. It has to do with a debt collector who has no other choice than to spend a night in a haunted temple where he encounters a female ghost and who he falls in love with, and then attempts to save her soul, trying to defeat a tree demon who owns her spirit. It's a classic Chinese cinema. It's a classic Chinese drama. Special effects have aged a little bit, but it's still pretty cool. Loosely based on the short story Niao Zhuarguin. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And it's also inspired by the Shaw Brothers' The Enchanting Shadow. There were 3 sequels made of this. It was a famous film back in the day. One of the breakthrough films of modern Hong Kong cinema. Shot beautifully. The cinematography is on point. Some comedic moments, which I'm never quite a fan of, but they go by pretty quickly in this one. The film is draped in martial arts movie traditions. Things proceed fairly predictably, especially if you've seen a lot of these kinds of movies. Overall, the film is lovely, albeit a little simple-minded. It's all beautifully constructed, but still a little naive and never particularly frightening. And it could have been. It could have easily have been frightening. Worth seeing just for its place in cinema history. Just don't expect a whole lot to be innovative. Moving on to a documentary from 2016. This is called Hired Gun. The director is Franz Stein, and it features a host of famous musicians, studio musicians, live musicians, that kind of thing. It's a documentary about session and touring musicians that are hired by well-established and famous bands like Metallica and Kiss and Billy Joel, who's kind of an asshole. The hired guns may not be household names, but they're masters in their class. A perfect example is Steve Lukather, who played on like Thriller and a bunch of Michael Jackson stuff. He was also in Toto, but played on Boss Gags. His addition to any lineup is going to make that project that much better. Most of the musicians that talk on this, and there's a lot of talking heads, are from the world of rock and heavy metal. It would have been nice to see jazz musicians or film score musicians or that kind of thing. But yeah, it's mostly made up of informed talking heads. The story is very episodic. Everyone's telling tales that are oddly similar about being hired, being fired, going on tour, living that life, and then that just disappearing. There are a lot of tales about firings. Once again, Billy Joel comes off in this film really terribly. There are also a lot of deaths. Randy Rhoads is mentioned. Dimebag Darrell is mentioned. And it also talks a little bit about what happens when the money runs out. For the uninitiated, it's pretty eye-opening, but I found it fairly standard stuff as I've seen a number of these documentaries and have read a few books. I just recently reviewed Steve Lukather's book, The Gospel According to Luke. The film goes down easy, though, and stories are all entertaining and interesting, even the sad ones. The personalities, I mean, come on, they're rock stars. They're all enigmatic. But overall, I think there's something inherently engaging about how music is made, and this film never fails to let the viewer take a little peek behind the curtain. Good stuff. I saw it on YouTube, and it is highly recommended. Up next, a film from 1955. It's called Ensayo de un CRIMEN, aka The Criminal Life of Archibaldo de la CRUZ. Is directed by Louis Buñuel, who did things like The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, Belle de Jour, That Obscure Object of Desire, and his most famous film is The Andalusian Dog, aka Un Chien Andalou. It's the one where they slit the woman's eyeball. Stars Ernesto Alonso, Miroslava, and Rita Macedo. The translation of the title is Rehearsal for a Crime. It's about a mentally disordered man who becomes obsessed with performing the perfect murder. But for some reason, every time he goes to kill somebody, he either loses his nerve or something gets in the way or somehow he screws it up. It's the final film of actress Miroslava, who died by suicide 2 weeks after the filming of this movie. It is a little misogynistic, and it's also emasculating, especially towards the main character. Let's see, what else? The themes of Catholicism pervade the film. It was made during the downturn in the Mexican economy, so it's a very small budget. They ran out of money at one point, had to go back out and find more and come back and start shooting again. It's critical of the bourgeoisie and Catholic morals, but still very much a thriller. Like most of the films of its day, the production is decidedly set-bound and stagey. It feels kind of like a play. Despite the main character's desire to murder, like I say, he can never quite pull it off. The acting is a little stiff and a little yappy. And the film is not nearly as lurid as it wants to be. Overall, I think it's a melodrama masquerading as a thriller. I would recommend this for Louis Buñuel completists only. Some other viewers may get a little frustrated, but it's an important film, so that's why it's being included. Up next, a silent film, 1925. It's called Wolf Blood. Directed by George Chesbrough and Bruce Mitchell, starring George Chesbrough, Ray Watson, and Milburn Morante. It's about a man who is off on some adventure and he gets injured and loses a lot of blood. And they decide that they're going to do a transfusion, but for some reason they don't use any of the other people's blood. They transfuse him with wolf blood, and then the rest of the film, the man starts to think that he's becoming a wolf. It's considered by many to be the oldest existing werewolf film. It's not. According to my research, there's a 1913 film called The Werewolf. It's kind of hard to find. Some call it a lost film, but it's out there. Despite the title and everything I've said so far, the werewolf elements are only introduced about 3/4 of the way through the film. It's Chesbrough's only directorial effort, and it's a fairly standard silent film. It's very overacted, it's very melodramatic, very like waiting, like a line is said and there's a pause and then the next line is said. I found it to be neither fish nor fowl. Everything leads you to believe it's going to be a werewolf film, but the very slim facets of the story are hardly there, and they are only added at the 11th hour. Of interest mostly, I think, to silent film fans or werewolf film completists. Our next film, 1978. Now, this is a good one. This one's really awesome. Taiju Yuan Kong, aka Born Invincible. It's directed by Joseph Kuo, who did the classic martial arts film Mystery of Chess Boxing. Stars Carter Wong, who was in Big Trouble in Little China, and he was in Rambo 3. Lo Lei, the classic Lo Lei, who was in Five Fingers of Death and the 36 Chambers of Shaolin. Quan Wu Lung, Jack Long, and Corey Yun makes an appearance there. And Corey Yun went on to be a director. He directed things like The Transporter, The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk 2. He directed No Retreat, No Surrender, Game of Death 2. You get it. A very arrogant, white-haired Tai Chi martial artist and two of his cronies wreak havoc on a small village, terrorizing people and their families. Three local heroes team up to defeat the villainous three, but they have to find the villain's secret weak point, which the Tai Chi master can choose to move around his body at will. Again, Carter Wong, he was Thunder in Big Trouble in Little China, and Lole make terrific villains. Yuen Woo-ping did all the choreography of the fights for this. Yuen Woo-ping choreographed things like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Kill Bill, and The Matrix. It's pretty standard revenge drama stuff. The hero fights to avenge his slain master. There's some mumbo jumbo about Taiji Kikwang, about making the body invincible, like iron arm or iron bar kung fu. But it's all a plot device for the martial arts battles, which are really what I call puck fights. Puck. They go on for a really long time. The real reason to see this, though, is Yuen Woo-ping's choreography, which is stellar. The fight continues on. Fight scenes periodically interrupt spoken oaths, training montages, and battles lost nobly. It's a classic martial arts film, a classic in martial arts cinema. All in all, the film is one of the better kung fu films of the late 70s, made so solely due to Woo-ping's involvement. Moving on to books. There was a big sale on Kindles. My wife got an email, and I picked up a book by Samuel Denhartog. It's called Fables of Japan. It's just what you would think. I found it to be a lot like Grimm's fairy tales or Aesop's fables or the stories of Hans Christian Andersen. They're like children's stories or like fables or parables from the Chinese culture. Perfect for kids. The stories are all short. I enjoyed it. It was a fun little book. Weird to see how some of the stories have been co-opted and used, taken to the West or into Europe and sort of refashioned. I got it, like I say, on Kindle for 19 cents. Well worth checking out. It's got a beautiful cover. The whole construction, even of the Kindle book, is really, really stellar. Thoroughly enjoyable. There were some of the stories in there I had heard before. I had read them in different versions in different books. Some of the stuff by Lafcadio Hearn kind of came to mind. But it's great. It's great stuff. And like I said, I got it for 19 cents. Something I probably go back to once in a while, maybe read to my granddaughter or something like that. Moving on to records, batch of good stuff this week. First record from 2026, this just came out. The band is called Natural Magic, and the record is just called Two. The band is made up of Michael McKinnon and Matthew Quiet from Portland, Oregon. The music is very similar to krautrock or space rock and even psychedelia. The band themselves in the press kit called it a road trip soundtrack, which I thought was kind of cool. Think ambient and naturey electronics. Reminded me of bands like Noi, like Orb, like Slowdive, Manuel Gotching, Spaceman 3, Windy and Carl, Floating Points, Brian Eno, and the band Gaussian Curve. I like this record. It went down, like I say, it went down super easy. Nothing too, it was good for active and passive listening. It was good stuff. Our next record from 1993, the artist is named Oystein Sevag. He is a Norwegian keyboardist and flautist. The album is called Link. You've heard me use this phrase before if you're a regular viewer of this channel, but it's like a soundtrack in search of a film. Very healing in tone, beautifully performed and produced. The production on this was just awesome. Lush, good audio separation. I listened to it in headphones and just had a delightful time. Fuses jazz, ambient, world music, and classical. Initially, I guess the record was released on Windham Hill, and that should kind of tell you something. A chill and a beautiful record. Very happy in its place. It reminded me of things like Michael Jones, the flautist Tim Weeder, the band Gandalf, Michael Hopp, and Jeff Oster. I love this record. And again, go to the description and you will find a link, and you can try it out for yourself. Up next, this is very cool. 1974, Joe Farrell and record called Canned Funk. And it's very much that. It's very much funk. Farrell was an American multi-instrumentalist, founding member of Return to Forever back in the 70s. This record was released on Creed Taylor's CTI Records. And Farrell played with people like Laura Nyro and James Brown and Elvin Jones and Airto Moriarty and Flora Purim. It's funky and articulate. This guy is a consummate horn player and an arranger. Big beat stuff, you know what I mean? Like solid, good stuff. Reminded me of bands like Ronnie Foster, Lonnie Liston Smith, Billy Cobham, Idris Muhammad, Donald Byrd, and the early work of Grover Washington Jr. Up next, a record from 2024. The band is called Notturno Concertante. The record is called Distressed Colors. The band is an Italian neo-prog band that was established in 1984, named after a musical piece by Crowley, who was an Italian composer. The band has influences of everyone from Marillion and IQ to Pendragon. The use of acoustic guitars adds a richness to their music that is pretty great. They have 5 records and also contribute to several prog rock tribute albums, like tributes to Genesis, Van der Graaf Generator, Camel, and there was a Canterbury SIEN compilation that they contributed to. Distressed Colors is their 8th record, the first with the new trio lineup, and they're awesome. There's some other instruments added, Albanian clarinetist Defram Mala, American keyboardist John Julian, Russian violinist Nadia Kumatova. There's a saxophonist and a flautist. This stuff is great. This was really great. The music was intricate, driven, and infectious, instrumental, but stellar, just stellar, immediately likable and complex. The record reminded me of things like early Steve Hackett, Anthony Phillips, and the great Gordon Giltrap. Yeah, good stuff. I really dug this a lot. And again, check the link out. Don't listen to me. Go check it out for yourself. And then we're going to wind this up today with a band called Space Circus. The album is called Funky Caravan. It's from 1978. This is a very funky jazz fusion band from Japan, guitar-oriented, although the bass can dominate. They've made 2 records. This record, Funky Caravan, and also something called Fantastic Arrival. Has elements of prog rock. Songs are well-constructed. Musicianship is top drawer. Reminded me of things like Kenzo, Takura Sakurai, Cassiopeia, T-Square, Kazumi Watanabe, Al Di Meola, Takanaka. There's a little camel and Spyro Gyra in there. Reminded me of Yellow Jackets and Return to Forever. Good stuff. I don't even remember how this came across. I say that a lot, don't I? I don't remember how this came across my desk, but boy, was I glad that I got it. I'm going to probably go back and check out their other record because I enjoyed this one so much. So yeah, that's going to do it for today. I'll be back on in a couple days with more stuff. Please check out my shorts. I've been doing some shorts every day. Some of these have already appeared in short form. I'm trying to do 2 movies and either a book or a record. I just got back today from a junk sale at a local junk dealer, and I bought some really cool Western novels that I'm going to share with you all that I think are very, very cool. So that's going to do it for me. Kind of short this week or this time out. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying the channel. Please subscribe, please like, please share, do all of that stuff. Hit the bell, whatever. I don't know what that does, but hit the bell. I'm slowly making my way here, trying to find people that might appreciate what I'm doing. And what that is trying to show you some things that you're not going to hear everywhere else on YouTube. Everyone seems to be talking about the same stuff, and I don't want to do that. I want to show you that it's a big world out there, and there's some great music and movies and books and yeah, just stuff. So until I see you next time, I'm Tom Carnell, and this is Carnell Knowledge.